To A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV. You're with Amanda Hall Psychic all the way from the Gold Coast here in Australia. And welcome to our brand new time slot. We're half an hour later now, and that's by choice. It gives me a little bit more time to sleep in of a morning because it is early morning here in Australia where I am. So welcome to everybody around the world. For those of you that are tuning in for the very first time, I've been on this network now for a bit over 2.5 years and really loving it. And we have a great audience all the way around the world. So let's kick the show off with the Simply Tarot card of the week, as we do every week. And it's the Nine of Pentacles. Now, when I drew this card this morning before the show, I thought, wow, isn't this wonderful? Because it's amazing to sort of see that in all this turmoil that's going on around the world, that we can have peace of mind and a little bit of contentment. Now, I know for many of you that's been very elusive this year as we've all gone through changes and lockdowns and restrictions and life not being predictable and never being able to plan anything past the next 5 minutes. So it's nice now to have a little bit of peace of mind and a little bit of contentment and feeling as if we're slightly back in the driver's seat of our own lives, even if it is only in our own head, that we can't necessarily change what's going on around us, but we can feel as if we're making informed choices and informed decisions for us as an individual. Now, I want you to remember that as we go further into the show and I talk about the astrology this week, I want you to remember that you are in charge of your own life, that you are the one that can bring some peace, some tranquility, and some contentment to your life, that you are the driver of your own vehicle. Now, the reason why I asked you to do that, because astrologically it's a very big week, and I've been saying that all year. It seems to be we gravitate from one huge week to another, but this week we have a slightly different flavour, and I want you to pay very close attention to what I'm going to say, because this really does affect each and every one of us in many different ways, but we all need to understand what is going on around us, the noise, the buzz, the hype, the political arenas, the messaging that we're getting in whichever way that you take your news in, whether it be, you know, through print media, through radio, through television, or whether it be through social media, or a combination of everything. You need to be very aware at the moment that Mercury, the planet of communication, is sitting in Scorpio. So what that means is we all need to delve underneath the surface to really dig deep and listen very carefully to what's being said. And we have to make sure that we can see the light side as well as the dark side. So there's going to be a lot of mixed messaging there, a lot of people sort of beating their drums that are saying, listen to me, I've got all the answers, I'm the only one that's right, look at me, how mighty and powerful I am. And I'm not just talking about in political ways, I'm talking about in everything. You know, whether it's a conspiracy theory, whether it's somebody talking about vaccinations, whether it's somebody talking about COVID, whether it's somebody talking about what might be going on in your local area. Make sure that you delve below the surface and really have a good, long, hard look at what they're saying. What are they conveying to you, and is it your truth? You don't always have to jump on board someone else's truth. It's got to sit comfortably with you. If it doesn't sit comfortably with you, then start asking questions, start exploring a little bit more until you feel that you are finding what feels comfortable for you. Now, this couldn't be a more important time because Mercury will actually go retrograde next week, which means then our thinking's going to shift just slightly and we're going to become a little bit more disorientated. So this is one of the reasons why I want you to be very, very careful in the next 7 days of what you're taking on board, what you're absorbing and what you're listening to or watching or taking on board as being where you are in this world of ours. Now, at the moment, Mercury is sitting in opposition. So this means directly opposite the planet Uranus. Now, Uranus is the planet of the unusual, the unexpected. It's like a bolt of lightning. It's sort of ideas, situations, things like that can change in a moment's notice. Now, it's sitting in Taurus, which is supposedly where it doesn't necessarily feel comfortable there, but this is supposed to be suddenly bringing us some sort of stability, you know, making our world a little bit easier to deal with. Now, because Uranus is going retrograde or backwards at the moment, it seems as if everything's out of control. And in lots of places, it probably is out of control or out of control for what we consider to be normal. Now, sometimes we have to have chaotic energy. We have to have changes. We have to have things that aren't considered, quote, normal to shake things up and to get the place or the planet in a better position. Now, at the moment, with these two at opposing forces, it's almost like every sort of theory that you can think of is going to parade itself out there, whether they be truthful, whether they be lies, or whether they be anything in between. There's going to be information filtering through, particularly in this next, month, that a lot of it is going to be BS. Now, you're going to have your, be on the lookout hat on, as I pinched that saying from Christopher Cuomo on CNN because I think it's really good. He calls it a bolo, be on the lookout. And it's, it's be on the lookout for the BS that's going on in your life at the moment. And I think that's a very good terminology that we could all adopt. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter who you politically believe in or what your beliefs are. Be on the bolo, be on the lookout, and make sure that it sits comfortably with you before you adopt it. Now, it's interesting because there's going to be lots of people running around beating their drum, beating their chest, saying, I'm the greatest, I'm this, I'm that, I can do this, and I can make everything wonderful in the world. And then there's going to be other people that are going to be promising things that they can't deliver, like we can have a vaccine next week and the world can get back to normal with COVID or whatever the case may be. And it's not a matter of what's right or wrong. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I do believe in common sense in everything that we look at. I don't believe we just follow like sheep and follow the leader. I think we all have to make informed choices and decisions for us as individuals and for our families. And this is where I want to again ask you to get your hat on and sort of scrutinise every piece of information that you're given. Here in Australia, we're in the middle of budgets and elections and goodness knows what, and it's sort of almost like, I think a lot of people that I speak to here locally and around the world, it's like, oh, for heaven's sake, will you all shut up? I'm sick of hearing about things. It's this, you're just constantly in my face. I never get a chance to turn the chatter off, to turn the noise off. Now, I understand that, and I understand that, we've all had a huge year, and it's been a big year on the emotions, and it's like, can somebody just turn the switch off for a little while and just give me some peace? Give me something that I can just chill out and just be for the moment. Now, I understand that, but again, I want to say to you, be very, very careful. If you have decisions to make, be very careful that you fully understand the choices, the decisions, any contracts, any things like that you might need to sign in this next month. Make sure that you fully understand it. Maybe put it down and pick it up again and have a look at it a couple of times before you make that final decision or that final choice. Now, we often talk about on the show Jupiter, Pluto and Saturn that have all been sitting in Capricorn and been having a huge influence on governments around the world, anything official, and also, to do with COVID-19. Now, the big change, the big shift in energy this week there is Pluto and Saturn, which have been going retrograde for quite a period of time now, are about to turn direct and go forward. Now, this means that Saturn will be ending the end of his cycle in Capricorn and move into Aquarius in the next few months. So we're going to see some shake-ups. We're going to see some promises that are going to be made, particularly in political arenas and big business, things that can't really probably be sustained. It's like I'll parade this out there. It's like I'll have this photo opportunity. I'll get out there and blow my trumpet and the masses will follow and listen to what I've got to say because I'm so blasted important. And I'm only in this cycle, this minute, this moment, this opportunity. They forget that we all have memories and we all remember things that they said 3 weeks ago and 6 months ago and 12 months ago. And the world's becoming a little bit tired of the instant gratification society, and particularly with our leaders. So be aware of that, because you may, feel a little bit conflicted that 1 minute you're sitting one way and the next minute you're sitting another way, and then you think, oh, this is all too hard, just switch it off. Well, maybe that's probably a good idea for a few minutes. Switch it off, go for a walk, do something that makes your heart sing, gives you ability to reground yourself and redirect your thinking so that you can come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. Now, it's really important because we've got the moon, the emotional planet, which moves very quickly, is sitting in Gemini at the moment, and it's almost like I'm betwixt and between emotionally. And this is why I'm saying to you, be very careful if you've got to make decisions, because it's not so much that you're going to look for the easy way out, You're looking for something that you can control, something that you can bring to a conclusion quickly. Now, this doesn't always mean that we make the wisest decisions when we feel pressurized like this. So I'm going to ask you to err on the side of caution, make sure that you fully understand everything that you are entering into in your life, particularly in this next month. Make sure that you fully understand the consequences and you're not just sort of getting it off your desk or out of your mind as quickly as possible. Make sure that it's right for you. So it's really important that I think that we fully understand this, that on one part we're feeling restless, we're sick of it, and we just want things to stabilise and, oh, look, if I make that decision, it'll all go away or it'll all settle down. Well, sometimes that's not the answer, because sometimes we create more chaos in our lives, or we create a different set of circumstances, which then gives us more we have to deal with than the original problem. So that's why I'm asking you to just err on the side of caution, take a moment to sort of come back and regroup, look at things. It's good to be decisive and it's good to follow your gut feeling, but sometimes you've got to back that up with logic too. And sometimes by just taking yourself away from the situation and coming back again and looking at it again with fresh eyes sometimes gives us a little bit of a different perspective. Now, that leads me on to the candle of the week this week, and I've chosen the candle called Wishcraft. Now, people might sort of think, why would I choose a candle like this in these very torrid times where we have the ability to create our own destiny, where we have the ability to bring towards us anything that we want in life? Now, look, I'm not saying by using or burning a wishcraft candle that we can suddenly get the end of COVID and we can all go back to the world as normal. I wish it was that simple. If that was the case, I'd have a house full of these burning at the moment. But what I'm saying is that with the wishcraft candle, we have the ability to set our own intentions, to set what we want to bring into our lives that's going to make our life a little bit easier. For me at the moment, personally, what I'm wishing for, and I'm wishing for this as a collective, that we as a globe find some sort of peace, that we find our own peace, that we find our own truth, the things that sit inside of us that make us feel at peace. That's what I wish. And I've been burning this candle for over a week now, sending that message out to the universe, because I just feel everybody's pain. I'm feeling everybody sort of disrupted. Everybody feels jaded. Their emotions are raw. And it's like, can we just have a little bit of a simpler sort of time? And I think that that's important, that we need to go back into our minds and remember a time when life was a little bit simpler, when we were able to send something out to the universe and hopefully our wishes got granted. So that's why I've chosen the candle called Wishcraft. And for those of you that are big fans of Bewitched, which I am, in Bewitched, in a couple of episodes, they did actually talk about wishcraft, not witchcraft, wishcraft. So I thought that was interesting when I saw that many years after I designed this candle, that maybe somewhere in my subconscious I'd heard that name from being a much younger person and watching Bewitched religiously every day when it was on the television, that maybe that had stuck in my subconscious. So I want you to try and create, no matter what candle you've got, sit there for a couple of minutes with it, clear your mind, and just try and bring in your wishes of what's going to make you feel better in the world. Now, we're going to talk with Kayla in Smithfield, Virginia. Are you there, Kayla?
Hello.
Hello, Kayla. Do you have a question I can work with, sweetie?
Not necessarily.
I usually like to work with a question. That way then I can answer the reasons why you phoned into the show. You know, there's usually something that's pressing in your mind, you know, like where your life's heading, or, you know, should I take a job or something along those lines?
I guess where my life is heading is fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Kayla, let me tune into that for you. It's really, really interesting, because as you were trying to formulate your question to ask me, I was being shown the symbol for a number of endings, changes and transformations going on in your life. And I know that's a sort of a fairly generic thing to say, considering this year and we've all been forced to make changes or do things that we didn't want to do. But I actually feel underneath all that, you were gearing up anyway to make some fairly big choices in your life. You were gearing up from about this time last year, sort of you were questioning about where you were going, what you were doing, what was going to be my next 12 months, what was going to be what I wanted to bring into my life or the things that I wanted to enhance or improve on. And it was like that all sort of got sidetracked with, as it did for a lot of us, with, COVID sort of gripping the world very quickly. Well, it's now time, I think, to come back and revisit that. And it's sort of not necessarily do we have to completely change it. I think we can just tweak it and sort of look at now, 12 months on, what has changed? What have I looked at in maybe a different way, or what is more important? What's come to the top of the list that maybe wasn't at the top of the list before? And that's the next area that I want to work on. It's really interesting because the energy that I'm picking up from you, Kayla, is one of sort of being at one with yourself. And there's very few people I've worked with this year that I can say that to, that they've comfortably come through everything that's been thrown at them this year with still a sense of peace and still a sense of, well, I'm okay, like it mightn't be perfect, but I am okay and I'm holding my own and we'll get through this. So that's a really important place to sort of start, that where you are. I think what 2021 is going to bring for you, Kayla, is not so much more of the same, but things now falling into place. It's things that you've been working on for a lengthy period of time are now finally going to pop into their rightful slots and things will become easier. Were you contemplating or thinking about moving house or making a change to where you're living? Because I've got a change with where you're living. Is that sort of just renovations, or is it thinking about an actual
buying
move?
A house.
Buying a house? Good.
Buying a house, yeah.
Yeah, because to me that was the most pressing thing that was sort of like, that was around you, was I need to have this. I need to create this change with where I'm living. And I was going to say this to me was going to bring great stability. Well, of course it's going to bring stability if you're buying a house. So that's good. But I also wanted to sort of touch on, was there something there as far as professional, not so much changing your job, but adding to the job or adding to your skill set that will enhance or make your job easier? Is that something that you're looking at or been working on?
Yeah, I'm furthering my degree.
Good. Okay, because that was the other thing that they were showing me too. It was like the two major things around you at the moment was the where you're living and adding skills. And this is a good thing. I mean, everything else is just going to sort of fall in behind that. So the best thing I can say to you, Kayla, is keep doing what you're doing, because you are on the right track. You are listening to your guides and you are where you need to be. Even if COVID hadn't happened, I still think you'd be exactly where you are now, because you've managed to handle this with such grace and such poise and still keep yourself on the direction and the path that you needed to be going. So well done, sweetie. Okay, that's where we're going to leave Kayla now. We're going to go to Kiera in Long Jetty in New South Wales. I know Long Jetty well, Kiera. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
So do you have
I'm
a
good,
question?
thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, sweetie. Weather nice down in Long Jetty this morning, is it?
Oh, no, it's quite cold.
Quite cold, yeah. Well, I can assure you here on the Gold Coast, it's not exactly hot either. It's, we're still sort of looking to switch the heater up. Yeah, so I think we're all having a little bit of a cold snap for spring, aren't we? So how can I help you tonight?
I think so. I'm
You have a
just
question I can
wondering if, just if there's anything going to could happen, and if I have any loved ones close by to me.
Okay, Kira. Just with the few minutes that we have on the show, it's not always possible for me to bring someone through from the other side. What I can share with you is that we're never alone. They're always with us. They're always keeping an eye on us. The first thing that I picked up around you was I've got a series of question marks, Kira. So it's as if you're sort of questioning where your life's going, what you want, am I on the right path, have I done the right thing? It's like I'm questioning everything all the time. Sometimes when we get so many question marks all at once, it's asking us to just sort of stop, look and listen. Just, take a deep breath and sort of reboot ourselves and sort of say, okay, all right, I've taken a deep breath. I've got off the merry-go-round for a minute. What's the first thing that's come into my mind? That's the area that we'll start with. It may not necessarily been at the top of your list before you did that, but if that's the first thing that's coming towards you, then that's the area that we start. The first thing that I'm sort of seeing is stop questioning who you are. I think you know who you are and where you're going and what you want. You don't always have to be what everybody else wants. It's now time to say, no, hang on a minute. This is what I need. This is what I need for me. And it's okay to say no. You have a real trouble saying no to people. You sort of always feel obligated that if somebody's asked something of you that you've got to accommodate. Well, no, you don't have to from here on in. I'm going to give you permission to say no, and you don't need to give them a reason or an excuse. It's interesting because I feel during this rather unusual time we've all been through this year, but particularly in Australia, we've been through I think an even more disorientating time where we haven't been able to go very far. You've now learnt about what is important to you. And I think that's the most important thing here is that you've sort of looked at things and said, not so much that your life was worthless before, but there was a lot of people in your life that were taking up space that weren't really contributing in anything to your life. Like you were always there for them. You were always being the perfect friend or the perfect family member, and yet there was never anything coming back to you. And you sort of thought, well, okay, that sort of makes sense to me now. Do I put any more energy into that? The answer is no, let it go. Unless they start giving you something or reaching out to you, it's not your place to do so. And by doing this, you will start to take more of your own power back, and you will start to feel more decisive in where your life's going, because you'll be starting to harness all that energy that you were scattering and giving away to everyone else. You'll be bringing that back to yourself. And that's really important, Kira, because as we move into 2021, you're going to start to find that things are going to become a lot clearer at what you wish for. I don't see a move of residence, but what I do see is movement within the residence. It's as if you've got everything sorted out, you've cleaned everything out, you've got everything in its rightful place. And now me, Kiara, the person, is able to sort of bring about change in my life that I want. And one of the things that I think this year has really shown you is that, yes, you've been lonely to a point, but it's like I didn't feel alone as such. Yes, I might have been lonely for company, but you weren't alone. You sort of felt quite comfortable in your own skin at who you were and as a person and what you stand for. And that's really important. There is going to be either a new job or the opportunity to take on new skills to enhance the job that you've got. But I'm not seeing that much before March next year. It's sort of like between now and March, I just want to see you glide. I don't want to see you make any major choices, decisions, changes, unless they're absolutely urgent. It's like, let's just sort of glide into next year. Just let everything that you've gone through and everything that you've worked out for 2020, just let it all sort of bed in and sort of find its own level. It's like pouring a glass of water onto a surface. Let it go into all the nooks and crannies it needs to, and eventually it levels itself out. Well, that's what you're doing with your life at the moment, and that's a good thing. Was there somebody that came back into your life this year that there'd been some unresolved emotional issue before? And I'm not necessarily saying romantic, even though I felt it was a male energy. Was there something there that had been unfinished or unsaid or we never got a completion from? Did that happen earlier this year?
Yeah.
I still feel there's another piece to that. It's like, yes, I've got more completion, but it's like I want to get this final piece and just push it into the jigsaw and say, that's it, with some sort of force, if that makes any sense. Now, I feel that you're going to be given that opportunity to sort of, in a sense, do that, sort of like you get the final piece, and you push it in there and say, right, that's it. And you're very determined about it. It's like, now that's finished. It's like, I've had my opportunity to have my say. And you might have been happy with everything that came out around this, but it's like I finally feel now I have the answers. And it was something that, in an indirect way, was holding you back. Now, sometimes we have things that are not completed in our lives that hold us back in ways that we couldn't begin to imagine. And it's not until we've worked through them or we've had the opportunity to work through them that we then see, oh, wow, that's a major thing. It's like I feel like a weight is being lifted off you or about to be completely lifted off you. When that happens, and I think it will happen as early as next month, then I think we can sort of just glide into 2021 and just sort of coast along until the universe starts to show you the openings that are coming. And let me assure you, it's going to be a lot better than what it has been. So I think you've got a lot to look forward to. Set the benches high, set your goals high, and just allow things to happen for you, Kira. You're right on cue for where you need to be. So that's where we're going to leave here in Long Jetty in New South Wales. Very pretty part of the world, right on the water. And I hope that you've enjoyed the show, and I hope that this, coming 7 days is going to see you have a little bit more peace in your life, even though we've got some chaotic energy astrologically. But I'm sure everybody can find their own way of finding a little bit of peace. 2020 has been a year of disruption and change and upset and confusion and not knowing what's coming next, and I don't know that the rest of the year is going to be any different. But anyway, we've had a bit of practice at it now. We're all getting better at being versatile and being able to think on our feet and make split-second decisions about the next 10 minutes in our lives, which we weren't able to do probably this time last year. So until next week, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic week, and we'll see you again next week at the new time slot. Bye for now.